Welcome everyone to AVATA's Cloud webinar series. My name is Deb Bryant. I'm the marketing coordinator at AVATA, and I will be facilitating the webinar today. We are presenting the first of 6 webinars in our series on Oracle Cloud, and this one focuses on the roadmap to Oracle Cloud and how the latest release changes the game. Presenting for you today are Dwayne Hardiker, Managing Partner at AVATA, Ed Hijack, Cloud Solution Architect at AVATA, and our special guest today is Michael Cuban, VP of IT Business Solutions at Pharmavite. I would like to call your attention to a few housekeeping notes. There will be a few pop-up polls throughout the presentation that will help us get to know our audience a little better, and we would greatly appreciate your participation. In fact, we will be offering a $100 Visa gift card to one lucky participant that answers all of our poll and survey questions today. If you do have questions during the webinar, feel free to submit them through the side panel window, and if time allows, we will take a few minutes at the end of the presentation to answer them. Our agenda today begins with a brief introduction to AVATA, and then some discussion on cloud with our guest speaker. We will then get into some cloud roadmap strategies and talk about how Oracle's R13 release changes the game. We will conclude with some final thoughts and take some questions if time allows at the end. And now I will turn the presentation over to Dwayne.
Thank you, Deb, and welcome everyone. I want to start with a few quick slides on AVATA. So this is a webinar series. You're attending webinar 1 of the series. It's really about cloud these days, and AVATA got its start in cloud over 4 years ago as the first company to take the Oracle's on-premise VCP solution, package it up, and offer it as a SaaS model to the industry. We ended up leading that industry, and that kind of drove us into being selected to be part of Oracle's co-development for cloud, the SCM cloud products. So that the co-development program allowed us to, again, enrich our knowledge on what the current and future releases of the cloud product is, and that takes us to where we're at today. AVATA has 3 core service offerings, and within each of those service offerings, we cover a range of solutions, implementations, management, consulting within that. The first one, obviously, is cloud, where we are fully engaged with ERP cloud, EPM cloud, as well as, obviously, SCM cloud. Our second offering is JD Edwards. We do a full end-to-end JD Edwards, and this makes a lot of sense in today's world, especially because there's a lot of synergy between JD Edwards installs and cloud. We're going to talk about that today as we talk about innovating at the edge. And of course, we're anchored in supply chain management. This goes back to our origins and our lineage. We started off as a supply chain operations and manufacturing company. This is something that we're still rooted in deeply today. So what has really drove our reputation and made us special were 3 key components over the years, what we call the AVATA Advantage. Obviously, our people, we come from the business side of the house and have experience in how to drive technology, because whether it's on-premise or cloud, one fundamental fact has not changed, that it's still about people, process, and the technology. We take that into an extreme focus on the customer. We will do whatever it takes to ensure that our customers are successful and achieve value in the solutions we provide. And last is our end-to-end single source from strategy through execution. So whether it is pure management consulting on a particular business aspect of the business, we can take that from a strategy perspective and drive that all the way through to execution. And that execution can be a software implementation, it could be an organizational realignment, introducing new metrics, process re-engineering, whatever that execution fits that business solution. So that's a quick blurb about AVATA. So let's get into the topic of today. So those of you who were at Open World, you may have attended one of the keynotes by Dave Donatelli. This is a slide from that keynote, and he talked about the 6 key paths of going to the cloud. We're going to focus on 5 and 6 in this. We're going to touch on paths and infrastructure as a service, but really we're going to focus on the transformation of SaaS and net new cloud. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker. It's a gentleman that's not new to cloud. He's been a pioneer in the area of cloud and innovating at the edge. He has been a long-term customer of AVATA. I've been honored to personally work with him. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Michael Cuban, VP IT Business Solutions at PharmaVite. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Dwayne. Glad to be here.
So, Michael, let's kick right off and get into a discussion about this journey to cloud and again you've been down this path. But let's start off with tell us about your the landscape at PharmaVite.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, again, thanks for allowing me to be here. The term pioneer makes me feel a little bit old, so I appreciate that. But I have been around for a while. PharmaVite, let me talk first about PharmaVite. We're in the business of making dietary supplements for the last 46 years, primarily known for Nature Made brand. Company was acquired by Otsuka Holdings in Japan, a large pharmaceutical in Japan, back in 1989. And I've been in IT since 1984. So, from that perspective, I guess it does make me a little bit of a pioneer. I've had application infrastructure roles with about a half a dozen companies, including Nestle, Baxter, Citigroup, Earthlink, and then joined PharmaVite in 2010. PharmaVite started the journey with VCP about the time I joined. Shortly after, almost right after I joined, we made a significant investment with Oracle in the VCP suite. We had been a J.D. Edwards shop since 2005 and wanted to expand our technology footprint across the value chain. We implemented Demantra and ASCP between 2010 and 2012. And then in 2013 and 14, we took a slight break from systems and opened our first manufacturing location in Alabama, which is our first site outside of California, which was new for us. And soon after, we implemented Oracle Agile PLM, roughly the 2014-15 timeframe. And then we embarked on a long overdue upgrade of J.D. Edwards, where we jumped 3 major releases, upgraded about 60 other impacted systems, as well as made significant changes in our infrastructure, including moving from DB2, as we were an IBM shop, to Oracle database. So our cloud journey really began about 2012 with HR systems, and we started that with ADP, and then with smaller systems, such as a product called Product Insight for our cost savings management and our operations group. We use OneSync for retail product data management. We are now for collaboration using Outlook 365 across the organization. We use a product called Blue Jeans for our phone and video conferencing. AirWatch manages our mobile services, and ServiceNow is our tool for managing our service desk. We're currently deploying a product called Astute for consumer affairs, as well as additional tools that we have in security and business resilience. Really in about 2015 was when we started working with Oracle on some of the early adoption aspects, primarily in the SaaS world with some of the tools there, but also primarily within PLM, but also with some of the platform tools for business process management. And we've also played with some infrastructure offerings as well. I think we saw the cloud coming and tried to be an early adopter, but in a very focused way.
So that's a great landscape of cloud, right? So you definitely have been on this journey for a while on cloud and early adopter. So, this brings us to a next logical question. In your opinion and from your experience, what are some of the critical elements that a CIO should consider when jumping into cloud?
Yeah, thanks. So I think, first and foremost, we have to understand, that cloud is not an if, right? It's a when, right? When is this happening? It's not going to slow down. It's not going to stop. It is where we are going. There are just too many aspects of the cloud that drive the need for this to happen. And I think, for some of us, right, we saw, decades ago where, these things, even though we didn't really conceive of the cloud, right, but the concept of these integrated, tools, in a web, type environment was obvious. I think, right now, I think one of the critical factors is culture, right? So, we can't forget, our staff. We can't forget IT people. And I think the average IT person who's been in IT for any length of time has a bit of a fear of the cloud, whether they admit it or not. Most people don't really handle change well, and understanding how they fit into the future is a key aspect of personnel management, for any IT leader. I think as technologists, we need to be the first ones to embrace that change, and sometimes we're a little slow. And in this case, unfortunately, I think in many cases, the business is the one that's embracing it rather than IT. And we have to remember that our responsibility is about solving business problems in an agile way and not about the technology. And I think we often forget that. But I think there's also the enterprise view question. The issue is, and we've seen it in similar situations in the past, I can go back to the 80s when PCs came in and financial data was all over the place. We can go back to the 90s when client server came in and, the mainframe was slow and cumbersome, couldn't get anything done. But that resulted in disconnected systems, and it really is just a repeating cycle of IT, right? So it's new, it's fresh, and we're unfortunately, I think, forgetting sometimes to look at the enterprise view. And then integration, I think, would be my next point, right? So my concern is, and we've seen it already, where cloud delivers niche products that solve specific business problems, but then systems, again, stop talking to each other. Data is not consistent. It's spread out over multiple clouds, not connected. And then the business is going to complain to IT and why we can't figure out how to get the data from here to there, right? So I think we really have to make sure that we keep our vendors accountable to the big picture. One of the things I think that has really excited me about the Oracle vision is just that. It is a vision of an enterprise view. It's not a simple one. It's going to be a lot of work, to get there. And I think there's, still a lot of questions in that area. But as leaders, I think we have to drive our partners, and we have to stay focused on that big picture. I think that's, those are the key things that we have to look at.
Couldn't agree more, Michael. With that, what were some of the lessons learned or challenges based on your experience where, again, you have clearly a good thought process on what it should be, what it ought to be, what things we need to think about. What happened in reality, either from a technology perspective or whatever, some of the lessons learned you can share here.
Yeah, for me, there's really, I think, I thought about this, and there's really, I think, 4 areas that for me that stood out. Functionality, integration, I mentioned that again, performance, and support, right? So, the biggest thing, right, is the functionality. It's readily apparent, that we see the infancy of it all. It is clear, in many, or I should say most areas, the functionality sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. It's not rich enough, and that directly impacts our ability, or IT's ability, to deploy. And if you do get it deployed, then adoption becomes a problem, because whether we admit it or not, the business likes having their functionality, right? And and so there's a concern, with that. Then how do you fill those gaps? And I think it's one of the bigger things that we've seen. Integration, I mentioned it earlier. It's important enough to mention again, where they're not talking to our legacy systems, which, in many cases, our legacy systems aren't that old, right? So there are financial considerations that we have to think about as well. And then I think one of the bigger things that has probably surprised us a little bit is the performance. We have seen definite issues with performance on applications. I think early on we probably didn't push the performance testing enough. when we were investigating, our solutions, and now it's a key focus for us. We have to do that. And then the fourth thing I mentioned was support. There's always been challenges when dealing with support. It's just the way it is. But I feel we're seeing that even more now. I suspect that in the speed in which companies are trying to move to the cloud and the breadths of demands that they're getting from their customers is presenting quite a challenge for them, and it's certainly a different model to the vendors. And we really have to focus on that from a due diligence perspective when we are in our selection process. And then we've got to make sure that from a contracting perspective that we really truly do cover those aspects. I think sometimes in the past we have taken that for granted, and it's something we really have to focus, I think, early on now.
Michael, I would totally agree. I think one of the interesting things that you brought out was some of the functionality and gaps, and we're going to talk about this further in this webinar around the maturity. Because you're right, Oracle, there's no other firm or company on the planet that's got the vision and breadth that Oracle's going after. And with that, there is a maturity level of the different cloud offerings, and that's something that people got to consider when looking at the roadmap. But also, with PaaS and where PaaS is at today, it really gives people that additional capability to be creative around some of these areas where you can extend the functionality or something that's business critical that you want to enhance on. So one of the messages and that I personally hear all the time, I know many of our customers hear it in the entire cloud industry, is it's plug and play, right? It's like download Microsoft Word, right? We all know
right.
That's just not the case. So, what are your thoughts on this, plug and play? Where are your thoughts around that there's less process work or change management involved in putting in a cloud solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think you stated, and I'll state it very clearly, it's just not true, right? It's not the reality. Maybe if you're, look, you just started a business and you're jumping into the cloud, and maybe it's easy for you, but for those of us who have footprints and have been in it, it's just not true. There's significant change across the board. For how IT manages the situation, how the business vanillifies their processes, because really the cloud is driving that aspect, and it's kind of a word that we came up with. The impact this impact has on day-to-day operations, of trying to change what they've been used to what now is really a standard mode of operation. And there is some configuration that is available. It depends on the tools a lot, but too often for us, our systems are overly customized because of the business demands. And while we support what we termed here vanillification, right, getting back to the basics, getting the business back to using the systems that are provided, has been a key challenge. I think it's not a simple task, and the amount of time it takes for the business to understand what they have to work with, but also what they don't have to work with, has been very time consuming. The business has to commit the same. And, the cloud hasn't reduced, right, the amount of time it takes for the business to figure out how to process, day to day. It's still there, and at the same time, right, it can have significant impact on your day-to-day staff, and the organizational change impacts, have been a really big deal, for us, and it's something that we, have heavily focused on. Not to mention the complexities, as I stated before, with the enterprise aspect, that, IT must deal with the time. We must deal with the time that it has to be taken to understand, or we're going to end up with siloed business systems again, and we've been dealing with, and then we'll end up dealing with it down the road, again. Whatever methodology, whatever tool, ultimately, IT is IT, right? Data input, process output, right? But the nuances that go around, that aspect from a business execution, are really challenging because the business is very ingrained in what they want to do, especially when you have a more mature, model or a more mature, core systems that you have to worry about.
Yeah, completely agree, Michael. And on that note, so it isn't all created equal either, right? So
right.
When you're looking at your roadmap, I think the leaders have to think about what solution am I going down, path am I going down, and based on that solution, you can throttle back up or down the amount of process work that's there, or amount of change management. And for example, finance, right? So AVATA has actually, we're a customer of Oracle ourselves, and we use Oracle Cloud Financials, along with some other products, Oracle Cloud products. And there's some areas where, okay, it's straightforward. The financials is a very mature product. So the process reengineering, being able to really go right to vanilla and drive that, and the change management, still there, right? It's not gone, but you can throttle back on the level of effort you planned for, right? And we had to implement our own change management, and I was the executive sponsor for that project, and I can tell you there was absolutely some change management on how we dealt with some of our international financing. But if you're implementing tools like, EPM or well, the best example is in the supply chain management cloud, is, as the functionality continues to get richer and richer, the business capabilities and solutions offerings get deeper and deeper, and with that comes, you got to manage the processes around it. What is the right process, and then you have to manage the change. So then it starts, you got to allow for that greater impact. So again, some further insights on when thinking about what that roadmap to cloud is.
Yeah, and one thing, add, right, it really does depend on the culture of the business, right? We live in a manufacturing world, right? So in a manufacturing world, right, there is a lot of ingrained, this is how I do it, this is how I've been doing it. In other business areas, I've been in telecom, I've been in hospitality, I've been in retail, right? Across the, there's it's very different how the culture of a company approaches systems. Some, the quote unquote the agile thought process, right? Give me a little today, give me a little more tomorrow, give me some more next week. It works very well. And in some companies that just doesn't, fly. So I think that's really a key aspect that has to be thought about when you're moving forward. Really understanding what your culture of the company is.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Well said. So moving on to our final question. So I love the word the cartoon.
Wait a minute. Is that me?
Magic,
that better
right?
not be me, Dwayne.
Sometimes it's just magic.
Yeah.
So I mean, what are some? We've covered a lot of ground. Again, on giving people something to think about when they're looking at their roadmap to cloud. What are some final words of wisdom, again, based on your experience?
Yeah, I think, and this kind of resonates with what I said earlier. Number one, focus on the complete picture. Make sure that you look, at the entire picture: infrastructure, platform, data, applications, analytics, right? Again, it's that enterprise view. When we first, started thinking about, hey, the cloud, we were in a position from an infrastructure standpoint that really, kind of had us in a bind, right? So we decided, to focus on the foundation first, right? And move our infrastructure to a private cloud, right? And we did that, early, actually, 2011, right? But and again, it's one of the things that I really, jumped on, the Oracle bandwagon with that vision that, that came out, right? You had the link of the cube thing I did, several years ago now. And you know, we clearly drink the Kool-Aid. We're sipping it a little bit now, and rather than drinking it, you know, by the cupful. But I think, you know, that, you know, infrastructure, platform, data, applications, analytics, we have to force a view of complete solutions, right? But in turn, we also have to understand that we may not be able to start with that in delivery, but our roadmap must lay out, you know, the long-term strategy, and that's, you know, one thing that we've really been trying, you know, to focus. I mean, if you know where you're going, you can adjust, you know, along the way and still get to the same spot. You know, but if you don't know where you're going, again, you're going to end up with you know, siloed applications, siloed data, and, you know, it's going to just cause pain. I think the other thing, and this is important really, you know, from my perspective, from our partners, our vendors, right, to understand that it's a personal picture. One size, unfortunately, does not fit all. We have to make sure that we, you know, separate core versus context, right? You know, and by that I mean, you know, what's really important, you know, what differentiates us, right? You know, as a business versus what is contextual, right? You know, so, you know, for us, service desk, that's not, you know, that's not a core, you know, aspect, you know, of our business, right? You know, product innovation is, right? You know, manufacturing processes are, right? So separating the core from the context, you know, is very key that we must understand, and then make sure that our partners are addressing the things that are core in a very personal way, right? I think we've felt like, you know, some of the vendors have come out with a, you know, again, that one size fits all. We need to settle on the things that are not as important, and be able to deliver those quickly, I think, and then focus on the core things. I think we are in an infant stage where vendors are coming out of the woodwork. They come out of the woodwork, what I call eye candy, right? It looks really good now, but as we know, candy will be bad for you in the long run, right? So, you know, we have to really make sure that we are truly developing partners that I think are going to work with us, that align to our strategy, and again, that they will really be partners and not vendors. And for me, that's, you know, that's the key that, you know, we're looking for, and that's, you know, what we're, you know, trying anyways to hold, you know, our partners accountable to. And you know, so the complete picture and the personal picture is how I frame, I think, are the two, you know, key aspects to really focus on.
And once again, I couldn't agree more. And having been a partner, and I love the fact that you do use the word partner, right? Because again, you're not slamming in software. While cloud in many cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, definitely accelerates time to value, accelerates implementation speed. If you've evaluated all the proper, you know, process aspects, functionality aspects, culture, as Michael pointed out, and change management aspects. But you know, but you're right. You got to hold partners accountable. And after what? It's been what, 7 years? 7 years, Michael?
Yeah.
I can attest that you definitely are great about partnering and holding us accountable.
Yeah, we don't let you off easy, for sure.
No. Michael, thank you so much for, you know, again, a lot of great insights and information to think about. We appreciate you, having you here today.
Yeah, Dwayne, thanks much. Glad to be on here with you. Truly do appreciate your partnership that we've had over the years, and we look to having more going forward.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, Michael Cuban, VP IT Business Solutions, Pharmavite. So with that, we're going to move on to the second half of our webinar, and I would like to introduce a guy that has not been new to Oracle Cloud either. He actually is a former Oracle employee, and I'm happy to say I've worked side by side with him. So Ed Hayek, Cloud Solution Architect, welcome.
Thank you, Dwayne, and welcome to part two of our two-part webinar here today. So let's start talking a little bit about cloud roadmap strategies, and to put a little context to it. there's I'll reference a little bit of Nicholas Carr's book called The Big Switch, which postulates and forms a great theory on how the revolution is ongoing and will continue. So where computing continues to shift from local resources to more of a common grid type approach, similar to what we already experience with, say, the electrical power grid today. And really what we're looking at is just a very big revolution in that one technology and how we approach our business systems architectures going forward. Now, with cloud technology, right, and in particular also with Oracle Cloud, right, what you're looking for is making sure, looking at how cloud can help achieve your goals and make sure that you have those tools in place that are essential for transformative type changes. There's many paths to the cloud, so really one of the key questions that customers, especially business customers, are asking is, which path or which way should we approach cloud technology, and how should we begin adopting? So first, let's define what cloud solutions are, or figure out a little bit of what buckets we want to put different cloud solution areas into. And as Oracle, has helped define the various offerings, we look at sort of data as a service, effectively, where the key goal here is to help unify customer data, right, and access across various data sources and channels of information, sort of who customers are, where they are, and what they're doing. So the key here is to take a lot of those disparate information sources, bring them down into one central place where key business insights can be gleaned. Then another area, infrastructure as a service, right? This is your hosted environment area where really the servers and storage, right, are kept in a central place, bought as a service, and the service provider sort of keeps the lights on for you, right, for those for that hardware and infrastructure. Then there's platform as a service, and this is one of those particularly exciting areas to help with integrations. I'd say number one, bringing information together from whether it's a Oracle Cloud solution or other software as a service solution, and on-premise areas. This is one of those key sort of linking technologies to help connect them, extend functionality where the business kind of sees fits, and also keep information secure, but also help make it available even with some mobile platforms or mobile access platforms as well. And then there's software as a service, and this is where Oracle, I think, does stand apart from other key areas in that it does have the most comprehensive collection of various software as a service applications. It does touch all business functions, and that's unique in the industry. So we will here dig a little bit further into software as a service here in a little bit. Also, the other thing that I'll mention is, second, depending on the type of cloud solution area that you're digging into, the work detail or job detail for your IT organizations have different focus, right? In what they're going to be looking at. And so with on-premise, right, your IT group is focused in all facets, basically, of the business system, everything from the applications through the database down into the servers and storage and networking. And then, of course, as you move over toward the right side of the slide, right, you go all the way through infrastructure, platform, and then finally in the software as a service, where you're hiring, effectively through the service, the maintenance activity and other activities, basically going in all the way up to and including the applications area. So digging a little bit more into the software as a service, really you know, from a completeness portfolio, you know, the Oracle Cloud really does touch on every key aspect, from human capital management through customer experience, full financial applications, both from enterprise resource planning as well as enterprise performance management, and also supply chain management. And when you throw in sort of the data analytics points, and then also I'll take a little bit more details in this as well later. The Internet of Things basically is a very recent product offering through Oracle to really connect into how really provide value and how real-time data can be used for key insights and offer a very fast turnaround time in corrections based on that real-time data. That said, not all the offerings are equal as they stand today, and certain areas really have been out in the marketplace a little bit longer and have further or greater depth of functionality. And so in this chart, we look at sort of the grouping of that human capital management, customer experience, and then the financials area being relatively more mature, more feature-rich, I'd say, as applications up until recently, with supply chain management, Internet of Things, and the other areas being a little bit more new, based effectively to the offering from Oracle. So the question that comes up at really virtually every customer, right, is how do you break down you know, the choices? The journey is clear. The journey of what is our IT system going to look like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and when you expand that time frame, especially the larger scale you get, the trend in the industry and the trend of providers is definitely toward cloud computing. And so that said, when you're looking at the journey to the cloud, there's various options available today. And so one of the options that you can look at is starting with hosting, right? So effectively sort of lifting and shifting from an on-premise computing resource platform into a more hosted environment. And with that, what we've seen customers do is experience some fairly simple IT cost reductions, right, as they're leveraging the service of having that infrastructure hosted. The next thing that we've seen in industry is sort of taking that rifle shot, right? So take a certain business function and move those business functions where it makes sense to the cloud. And so for instance, we've seen a lot of customers shift to logistics, to cloud logistics offerings, transportation or global trade offerings, and then also other areas in customer experience and master data management as well to the cloud. So picking a particular business function and moving that function to the cloud or hitting it from the edge. And another area that we've seen relates to end-to-end process flows. And so really for end-to-end processes like procure to pay, like the plan to produce end-to-end processes, instead of picking just one function, pick the functions that need to coordinate or get extra value when they're very closely coordinated, and move that business function end-to-end or business process end-to-end into the cloud. Another thing that we've seen is a path where a portion of the business, so say for a large corporation, if there's a certain division with especially a division with say a simple manufacturing process or simple supply process, moving that one division over to the cloud. We've also seen this used, say, with acquisitions, right? So as a small division might be newly acquired, instead of moving that division onto your single instance on-premise, move that division into the cloud. That offers a few benefits, including sort of getting reducing risk, right, to the business, so you can move a portion of the business to the cloud without necessarily having the risk of a entire enterprise moving to the cloud at once. And for certain businesses, right, where there's also the possibility of doing a complete transformational shift, basically, of the entire enterprise into the cloud. And so really what you see from the scale on the bottom, right, you got some complementary or incremental type improvements, right, continuous improvement type processes, versus, say, the transformational shift, right, for either a portion of the business or maybe the whole business. So in getting back to the question, which approach is right for you? So now that we talked a little bit about, some different approaches that we've seen and see as best practices, which one can be most appropriate for you and your business? And really, there's a couple balances, right, to take into account. And the first balance is really business agility, right, or ability to change, and also business priority, right? So if you're in an industry that's rapidly changing, or there's a certain functional area that is underperforming, right, versus competition, there might be additional pressure, right, to change, or the other way to look at it is sort of implementation or adoption cost versus a business value for doing that implementation or adoption of new tools. And the other layer to this, right, and what we've seen in industry is some trends where we can see some small and medium business, right, go for complete transformation. So especially if you're in a business environment where the primary planning tool happens to be, say, Microsoft Excel or offline database type tools, a complete transformation might make most sense, right? Get everything connected, get all the functions better coordinated, and reduce those informational barriers between functions. The divisional modernization, right, where either a division or an acquisition might move. We've seen larger enterprise customers take the initiative with some of those recent acquisitions or smaller business units to move to the cloud as that first foray into moving an entire business into the cloud. And then the innovate at the edge, coexistence is probably the area that we've seen the most of, which is you've got say a medium-sized business or mid-market or enterprise-sized business where you do take that either functional area, right, like HR, right, or that complete end-to-end process like plan to produce, right, and move that function or process into the cloud, and that's dubbed as sort of the innovate at the edge type of process. And for operational excellence, I'll touch on that briefly. This is something that I think has been done for a number of years now, actually, where you lift and shift, right? Lift up your current IT infrastructure and shift it into a cloud infrastructure for those cost reductions. And digging a little bit further into the innovate at the edge area, basically this also known as the hybrid strategy, and here's where really we see a philosophical preference, I think, from customers in that you're taking one function, you are enjoying the benefits where you can provide some immediate wins, right, an immediate benefit win for the business. And lower the risk of moving everything to the cloud, while also enjoying the benefits of at least having a function or two, or move a function over and then build on that. The thing you need to be aware of, though, right, are kind of the do's and don'ts within that roadmap, right? So it's something where there are certain functional areas that make better sense than others to move into. And as an example, one customer example that we're sharing here is if you look at the innovate at the edge, kind of areas. Okay, one example is a company can sort of look at, say, maybe moving financials over to the cloud first. This is again taking that rifle shot if you're with great business value and having all of the financial data sort of consolidated, right, within a cloud instance, and moving that and doing a sort of a phased approach according to what makes most business sense, right? Sort of take that matrix of what makes most business sense versus product maturity, currently, and can it handle the requirements? And so by moving over in a phased approach, right, you're able to enjoy the benefits of cloud in the areas where it will benefit the most first, so you get that business value up front, and then also mitigate risk of moving entire business or actually embarking on large process change throughout the organization all at once. So the idea is to really to take on the different cloud areas according to how fast you as a business can bite off and digest those cloud areas. The alternative, of course, right, is sort of that complete transformation or divisional modernization. So instead of that phased approach, there is obviously the possibility of doing that big bang approach that we talked about, right? Either with a smaller portion of the business or a portion of the business functions, and or if you're looking for that transformative business case. So other areas that I wanted to kind of point out, further examples. In looking at customers, particularly customers on either JD Edwards or Oracle core systems, there are very strong use cases existing today. In particular, with JD Edwards customers, the sourcing and contracts area within the cloud solution is again one of those functional areas that we have seen and had customers enjoy great value and see great gains basically by shifting over to that cloud area. Finance and especially planning and budgeting area is something that we definitely see some good functional improvement opportunities. Also with transportation and trade compliance, this is an area that for a few years now I think has continually been adopted by both EBS and JDE customers to great success actually, getting that visibility into into your inbound and outbound transportation areas real time effectively, and helping make sure that you're minimizing the transportation cost at the same time as well. In-memory cost management is a newer area that has a great use case around simulations and one analyzing various costs, right? So from procurement questions through manufacturing questions through bill of materials changes questions. This is an area that provides really good simulation capabilities to answer those key questions, right? What if we switch vendors? What if we switch to a different part? What does that mean from an availability, but also from a cost management standpoint? Very, very agile tool to use. And supply chain planning, with the release of Planning Central a couple of cloud generations ago, really it can provide a nice single interface tool that manages both the demand and the supply side of the picture within an efficient user interface. And really the idea is to provide information to the supply chain planning organization to make the most efficient and informed decisions, right? So all the information in one place. So part of our tagline is, right, how does release 13 or the latest release of cloud change the game here? And one nice thing with Oracle Cloud, and this is a key difference between cloud versus what you've been used to with on-premise solutions, is on-premise solutions have tended to have, say, annual large releases that to take advantage of can require a large, spanning possibly more than a year, 18-month type process to fully adopt or fully upgrade basically an entire on-premise system. With the cloud, what Oracle's vision and what they've been doing actually has been incremental, more frequent updates to the software. And because of the technology and the way it's set up, those updates are much less of or a much lower task for a business to adopt. And so really what we see is in the blue box, you see kind of that incremental update, right, for some of the more mature packages, some extra functionality and extra things coming in. What changes the game, though, really is a couple things. One, supply chain management area of the functions has greatly increased, and the advent or introduction of the Internet of Things has also changed the game quite a bit. So with release 13, what you see on this screen is really at the lower left-hand side of the screen in blue is where supply chain management or where Planning Central has been for since release 11 now, with a good basis and a good foundation upon which to build. And with release 13, the offering on the planning side, supply chain planning side, has gone from 1 to 5 offerings. So really the functional aspect has increased dramatically. And what I'll start with is really just kind of mentioning that from the demand planning side, demand management improves all aspects of that demand planning side. And so better visibility into the data going into forecasting, better insight into the calculations and machinations of forecasting, and also information presented in a way that improves demand shaping as a functional or integral function with demand management. On the supply planning side, really looking at a large improvement in especially within simulations or what-if analysis capabilities with side-by-side plan comparison and improved simulation configurability. So really with the supply planning tool, this is something where the tool kind of comes of age, I'd say, on the supply planning side. And then with sales and operations planning, what Oracle has provided is a platform that incorporates all the best practice S&OP process. So if you look at the S&OP textbooks in how a process should be set up, what you have is really a pre-populated, full integrated business planning procedure built into the tool with exhibits, with the metrics, with the different charts and things that across businesses you might want to look at. With supply chain collaboration, right, we open the door, or the software opens the door to actually having sharing information at a close coordination with suppliers and in particular contract manufacturers. So in looking at innovating at the edge areas, right, there really are a comprehensive set of areas to dig into. And with human capital management, right, you know, the idea of managing your workforce and really bringing together information and interaction between management and staff in a way that helps, one, keep track of how the organization is doing, and number two, help a fair bit with retention aspects, right, of staffing and you know, looking at balancing the needs and of the organization versus the capabilities of the staff. Enterprise performance management, right? You know, this is an area where really looking at, you know, I'd say, you know, planning and budgeting, profitability metrics, and also tracking that full enterprise performance and planning for the future performance. The customer experience, right? Looking at how you interact with your customers, particularly with how the sales channels are doing, and also providing that kind of e-commerce or ordering platform as well for customers. Enterprise resource planning, really, you know, hitting on all aspects that is accounting, cash management, you know, and also with respect to service and install base areas. Again, a very robust and fully featured program area. And then there's we just talked about supply chain management, so I won't go through that again. But the Internet of Things is one of the more exciting areas, designed around really you know, tracking the data to detect information or detect events that might be coming up, visualizing data in different ways, and also applying some artificial intelligence to help help predict when things might happen based on data that's gathering, and also integrating data across sources and providing them in a timely way to act on them. So as final thoughts, really, when it comes to cloud strategy, and this is probably with all IT strategy, but in case of the cloud, make sure your plans are strategically aligned between IT and the business, and that the plan is holistic in that you look at the whole picture, not just one function of cloud, but look how that function that you're looking to make cloud interacts with and or impacts other areas. Data and integration. This is a key area, right? Making sure one, your data is secured in its integration layers, and two, to make sure that you've got the right tool set to handle the volume, right, and frequency of data interaction that you want between your tool sets. And also, this is one of those key areas as well. Bang for the buck, meaning make sure that as you are making priorities, right, as you are looking at the list of potential areas that you might want improvements in, which ones will provide the highest value, right, and potentially at the lowest risk. So take time to fully understand the solution. The impact of customizations. That's one thing with the cloud solution. The customizations layer, meaning that platform as a service layer, right, can provide some creative setups in order to do things that might be unique to your business. But there's also the aspect of assuring that in implementation and also the change management aspect really is brought into full view. And this is one area that I've seen a lot of customers do, which is underestimate the impact of change management, both from a process redesign standpoint, but also from a training aspect for the staff as well. A cloud solution is designed to be very readily and easily adopted. There is still a learning curve and also a learning curve around potential changes to your business processes that may be necessary in order to adopt some of these tools. So one of the services that AVATA does provide is the what we call the Cloud Roadmap Assessment, where we can bring our experts, both in industry and the applications, to discuss potential areas where your business might be improved through the cloud, and also help map out that cloud journey, basically. So where does it make sense today? Where does it look like it might make more sense a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road? But one of the things with one aspect that we are looking for on the education side is to provide this series of webinars. The next one is coming up on December 19th on effectively the EPM Cloud, or Enterprise Performance Management, and how it can be leveraged to keep your enterprise connected and aligned, basically, while also providing that venue for moving to the cloud. As you can see, we've got a series of 6 total webinars. This was the first one, so look forward to seeing you guys on the 19th as well.
Thanks, Ed, and thank you to Dwayne and Michael for your time also today. We invite you to contact us, visit our website, or follow us on social media if you care to know more, or if you'd like to take advantage of our assessment offer. This concludes our webinar presentation. On behalf of AVATA, thank you all for joining us.